the first time I've done this, so I hope you guys can hear me. Anyway, my name is Sean, and I'm a real estate agent now, but in the past, I was a school teacher. I taught fourth grade for several years, and one of the things I loved the most about teaching was reading to my class. So I thought, since everything's shut down, kids are home from school, this would be a great time to read to you. And it's kind of geared towards the youngsters, but anybody can listen, adults, whoever, feel free to listen. So what I'd like to do is every Friday at about 2:30, I'm going to be reading a story, a variety of reading actually. I'll be doing some science readings, nonfiction, fiction, just a variety of things to hopefully spark everybody's interest. So let's see, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And today's book is going to be a science book. And it's a book on volcanoes by Seymour Simon. Now, Seymour Simon wrote a lot of these books for youngsters about different topics. Like he has one on clouds, rocks, and all kinds of things. But I thought volcanoes would be fun to get us started because everybody likes volcanoes. They're huge, they explode, they're crazy. And this has a lot of great photos in it, a lot of good pictures that I will share as I read. And before I start reading though, be thinking, what do you know about volcanoes? Or what do you think you know about volcanoes? And as I read the story or read the book, be thinking, wow, was I right? Or yeah, was I wrong? So just be thinking about that as I go through this. So anyway, Volcanoes by Seymour Simon. Let's see. All right, let's see. So volcanoes. All right, let's see, you guys can see that. All right. So throughout history, people have told stories about volcanoes. The early Romans believed in Vulcan, their god of fire. They thought that Vulcan worked at a hot forge, striking sparks as he made swords and armor for the other gods. It is from the Roman god Vulcan that we get the word volcano. The early Hawaiians told legends of the wanderings of Pele, their goddess of fire. Pele was chased from her homes by her sister, Namaka, goddess of the sea. Pele moved constantly from one Hawaiian island to another. Finally, Pele settled in a mountain called Kilauea on the Big Island of Hawaii. Even though the islanders tried to please Pele, she burst forth every few years. Kilauea is still an active volcano. So that's the hot lava. You don't want to touch that, right? Let's see. In early times, no one knew how volcanoes formed or why they spouted fire. In modern times, scientists began to study volcanoes. They still don't know all the answers, but they know much about how a volcano works. Our planet is made up of many layers of rock. The top layers of solid rock are called the crust. Deep beneath the crust, it is so hot that some rock melts. The melted or molten rock is called magma. Volcanoes are formed by cracks or holes that poke through the Earth's crust. Magma pushes its way up through the cracks. This is called a volcanic eruption. When magma pours forth on the surface, it is called lava. In this photograph of an eruption, you can see great fountains of boiling lava forming fiery rivers and lakes. As lava cooks, it hardens to form rock. That's pretty crazy, right? And that's a photograph. Those are not paintings or drawings. A volcano can be two things: a hole in the ground the lava comes through, or a hill or mountain formed by the lava. Mount Rainier in the state of Washington is a volcano, even though it has not erupted since 1882. Not far from Mount Rainier, there is Mount St Helens. Native Americans and early settlers in the Northwest had seen Mount St Helens puff out some ashes, steam, and lava in the mid-1800s. Yet for more than a century, the mountain seemed quiet and peaceful. So look at that. That's Mount Rainier. And those are all glaciers on top. So you have a volcano covered by tons of ice and snow, which is kind of funny, right? Volcano's hot, covered with ice and snow. And that is Mount Baker, and there's Mount St. Helens. They look like islands popping up. And these are really tall mountains. Mount Rainier's over 14,000 feet high, so it's very high. Check this out. In March 1980, Mount St. Helens awakened from its long sleep. First, there were a few small earthquakes that shook the mountain. Then on March 27th, Mount St. Helens began to spout ashes and steam. Each day brought further quakes until by mid-May, more than 10,000 small quakes had been recorded. The mountain began to swell up and crack. Sunday, May 18th, dawned bright and clear. The mountain seemed much the same as it had been for the past month. Suddenly at 8:32 a.m., Mount St. Helens erupted with incredible force. The energy released in the eruption was equal to 10 million tons of dynamite. Look at that. It just blew the entire side of the mountain off. So what do you think happened to all that ice and snow and glaciers on top? They melt immediately, creating tons of mud, which slide down the mountain. And look what it looked like afterwards. All the trees, these are huge trees that snap like little twigs. The eruption of Mount St. Helens was the most destructive in the history of the United States. 60 people lost their lives as hot gases, rocks, and ash covered an area of 230 square miles. Hundreds of houses and cabins were destroyed, leaving many people homeless. Miles of highways, roads, and railways were badly damaged. The force of the eruption was so great that entire forests were blown down like rows of matchsticks. Compare the way Mount St. Helens looked before and after the eruption. The entire top of the mountain was blown away. In its place is a huge volcanic crater. In 1982, the mountain and the area around it were dedicated as the Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument. Visitor centers allow people to view the mountain's astonishing power. So that's what it looked like before. And then afterwards, a huge chunk of it was blown off. So be thinking, have you been right about volcanoes so far, or have you learned a few things and were you wrong about some of the things? I'm learning stuff that I'd forgotten. Volcanoes don't just happen any place. The Earth's crust is broken into huge sections like a giant cracked eggshell. The pieces of the crust are called plates. The United States, Canada, and Mexico, and part of North Atlantic Ocean are all on the North American plate. Almost all the volcanoes in the world erupt in places where two plates meet. So you can see this is all the world, and along these little plate boundaries right here, that's where most of the volcanoes occur. Down the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean, two plates are moving slowly apart. Hot magma pushes up between them. A chain of underwater volcanoes runs along the line where these two plates meet. Some of the underwater volcanoes have grown so high that they stick up from the ocean floor to make islands. Iceland is a volcanic island in the North Atlantic. In 1963, an area of the sea near Iceland began to smoke. An undersea volcano was exploding and a new island was being formed. That's cool. The island was named Surtsey after the ancient Norse god of fire. So that's it erupting from, that's the ocean right there, the ocean, and the volcanoes erupting through the water. It's a lot of power, right? 10 years after the explosion that formed Surtsey, another volcano erupted near Iceland. It was off the south coast of Iceland on the island of Himei. Within 6 hours of the eruption, more than 5,000 people were taken off the island to safety. After 2 months, hundreds of buildings had burned down and dozens more had been buried in the advancing lava. Then the volcano stopped erupting. After a year's time, the people of Himei came back to reclaim their island with its new 735-foot volcano. So a mountain was born that quickly. And you can see that's a house covered by lava. And then the lava turns into what after it cools? Turns into rock. Most volcanoes and earthquakes are along the edges of the large Pacific plate. There are so many that the shoreline of the Pacific Ocean is called the Ring of Fire. But a few volcanoes are not on the edge of a plate. The volcanoes in the Hawaiian island are in the middle of the Pacific plate. A million years ago, magma pushed up through cracks in the Pacific plate. Over the years, eruptions followed eruptions. Little by little, thin layers of lava hardened one atop another. Thousands of eruptions were needed to build mountains high enough to reach from the deep sea bottom and appear as islands. The largest Hawaiian volcano is Mauna Loa. It is 70 miles long and rises 30,000 feet from the ocean floor. It is still growing. Every few years, Mauna Loa erupts again. So this volcano formed at the bottom of the ocean and had to rise up all through the ocean until it peaks up above the ocean, and then that's islands. That's what forms the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaiian volcanoes lava usually bubbles out quietly to form rivers or lakes or spouts a few hundred feet in the air in a fiery fountain. Hawaiian volcanoes erupt much more gently than did Surtsey or Mount St. Helens. Only rarely does a Hawaiian volcano throw out rock in high clouds of ash. So that's the Hawaiian volcano. So they usually don't explode like Mount St. Helens. And that's all melted rock. Think how hot that is to like actually melt rock. Steam clouds billow as a flow of hot lava enters the sea. Hawaii is constantly changing as eruptions add hundreds of acres of new land to the islands. In other parts of the shoreline, old lava flows are quickly weathered by the waves into rocks and black sand. Imagine going to the beach and instead of seeing the sand brown, seeing it like completely jet black. That's because of the lava. Hawaiian lava is thin and flows quickly. In some lava rivers, speeds as high as 35 miles per hour have been measured. In an eruption in 1986, a number of houses were threatened by the quick-moving lava. Firefighters sprayed water on the lava to slow down its advance. So it was moving so slowly they could actually spray water on it. Mount St. Helens, they could not have done that because it exploded. When lava cools and hardens, it forms volcanic rocks. The kinds of rocks formed are clues to the kind of eruption. The two main kinds have Hawaiian names. Thick, slow-moving lava, called a'a, hardens into a rough tangle of sharp rocks. Thin, hot, quickly moving lava, called pahoe, forms a smooth, billowy surface. So that's the a'a lava, which is super jagged, rough. And then this is the more ropey, pillow-like lava called, let's see, pahoe. There it is. Let's see. All right. Earth scientists. All right. There we go. Hope you guys can see. Earth scientists have divided volcanoes into 4 groups. Shield volcanoes, such as Mauna Loa and Kilauea, have broad, gentle slopes shaped like an ancient warrior's shield. And so there it is. It's like a huge shield, massive. Cinder cone volcanoes look like upside-down ice cream cones. They erupt explosively, blowing out burning ashes and cinders. The ashes and cinders build up to form the cone shape. The cinder cone volcano at the near left erupted in Guatemala, Central America in 1984. So that one. The cinder cone volcanoes in the background are still smoking from earlier eruptions. You can see the smoke. Most of the volcanoes in the world are what they call composite or stratovolcanoes. Stratovolcanoes are formed by the lava, cinders, and ashes of an eruption. During an eruption, ashes and cinders fall to the ground. The eruption quiets down and lava slowly flows out, covering the layers of ashes and cinders. Further eruptions add more layers of ashes and cinders, followed by more layers of lava. So it's like ash and cinders, lava, ash and cinders, lava. Mount Shasta above in California and Mount Hood below in Oregon are stratovolcanoes. They are still active even though they have not erupted for many years. So they're just those huge cone shapes, and then see what happens. They get so high that they get snow on top because it's so cold up at the top. And that's Mount Hood. That's in Oregon. Almost done. The fourth kind of volcano is called a dome volcano. Dome volcanoes have thick, slow-moving lava that forms a steep-sided dome shape. After an eruption, the volcano may be plugged with hardened lava. The plug prevents the gases from escaping like a cork in a bottle of soda water. As the pressure builds up, the volcano blows its top, as Mount St. Helens did. Lassen Peak in California is a dome volcano that erupted violently in 1915. You can see the huge chunks of volcanic rock near the summit. So those are the chunks of volcanic rock up by the summit. Around the world, there are many very old volcanoes that no longer erupt. These dead volcanoes are called extinct. Like the dinosaurs, they don't exist anymore. Extinct volcanoes, they don't erupt anymore. Crater Lake in Oregon is an extinct volcano. Almost 7,000 years ago, Mount Mazama in Oregon erupted, sending out a thick blanket of ashes that covered the ground for miles around. Then the entire top of the volcano collapsed, caved in on itself. A huge crater called a caldera formed and was later filled with water. Crater Lake reaches a depth of 2,000 feet, the deepest lake in North America. So that's where the volcano once stood, and then it collapsed, and now it's a huge, beautiful, dark blue lake. Last page. After a volcano erupts, everything is buried under lava or ashes. Plants and animals are nowhere to be found, but in a few short months, life renews itself. Plants grow in the cracks between rocks. Insects and other animals return. Volcanoes do not just destroy, they bring new mountains, new islands, and new soil to the land. So many good things can come from the fiery explosions of volcanoes. So what this shows is here's all this lava and you think everything's dead. Well, look, there's some green plants, little shoots growing up right there. So they destroy and then they create. So kind of interesting. So Volcanoes by Seymour Simon. Next week, I'll be back on at the same time and with a different book. So I hope you guys enjoyed and have a good weekend.